know that the killer bought the handgun used from a pawn shop in Alabama last year.
Right.
So the big question now, as we're discussing, did the system fail, or is there much more to the story? Let's bring in Matthew Horace now. He's a former ATF executive, a former special agent in charge, and he's now senior vice president of FJC Security Services. Mr. Horace, thanks so much for joining us. So help explain this to us. Georgia is where the gunman's ex-wife filed a restraining order against him in 2008. It's also where he was taken to this mental health facility against his will. In Alabama, that's where he was denied a concealed carry permit because of an arrest record related to a Georgia arson. Still, in Alabama, he was able to buy this gun legally at a pawn shop. It surprises me that none of these other events prevented him from buying this gun. Is that normal?
Well, I don't know how normal it is, but, Jake, there are several areas of reconciliation that have to occur, and it has to be done seamlessly, and it has to be done within the scope of the government and the state, and as you know, states' rights are very big in this issue. In this case, it appears as though he was never adjudicated mentally defective, and that would have sent off red flags. But even if that had have happened, the information would have had to be forwarded to NICS so that the FBI could forward that information back to the FFL. So along the way, there are many points of reconciliation where things can go wrong, and now we've seen another case where things actually did go wrong.
Right. We saw in the Charleston, South Carolina shooting, something going wrong. NICS, of course, standing for National Instant Check System. Evan, you wanted to ask a question.
Well, yeah, Matt, one of the things that was supposed to happen after 2007 and the Virginia Tech massacre was that there was supposed to be an encouragement for the states to more accurately reflect mental health records in the background system. What exactly has happened since then that allowed this issue to occur yet again?
Well, Evan, I can tell you I've worked in probably almost 3/4 of the states in the United States, and it's done very differently in every state. Some states have a tremendous amount of resources that they place into this issue and other issues. States like New Jersey and California, which have longer waiting periods, specifically to California, 5 to 7 days. So there's a longer period to go back and check and recheck to try to ensure that this doesn't happen.
Matt, explain to us, Alabama denied the killer a permit to carry a concealed weapon, but they did not deny him the ability to buy a gun. So I'm assuming these are different standards?
Well, like we discussed earlier, states' rights come into play when we're talking about the whole gun control and gun rights issue. So in both cases, in this case, that is absolutely possible and probable.
There's a form that potential gun buyers have to complete before they actually buy the weapon. It specifically asks if the buyer has ever before been found mentally defective, if he or she has been committed to a mental institution. Hauser bought his gun in 2014, about 6 years after he was treated for mental health. How could this not be flagged in a background check, or did it just not rise to the level where he had to admit it and acknowledge what had happened to him?
Well, again, if you look at the language on the ATF Form 4473, it's very clear. You had to be adjudicated by a judge, a court, a panel, and that's very different than saying that someone voluntarily committed themselves to a mental institution. Where is the record of the adjudication? Does the state know that there's a record? Did a judge adjudicate a person? And when that happened, was that information forwarded to NICS to make sure that the FBI system picks it up?
All right, Matthew Horace and Evan Perez, thank you both. Really interesting and complicated.